Hello again, everyone. I'm here with a watercolor favorites video. So because I am not committing yet to do these favorites videos, I'm still just calling this my recent favorites, and this is the watercolor edition. So I'm going to talk about colors first, but I'm also going to talk about other watercolor supplies like brushes and paper that I've been using, but I'm going to talk about the colors first. So this first color, which has become an all-time favorite, at least currently, is this Rembrandt Dusk Pink. So I did an unboxing that included this color and I swatched it out in that particular video. I'll put a link to that below. But I don't think the swatch that I did in that video really did this color justice because you really need to add a lot of water for it to really shine. So as you can see, when it's just put down without a lot of water, it just sort of looks opaque. But when you add water, it really gets this beautiful granulation and it breaks up really nicely and you can see the different colors. So this is really just a red pigment and a black pigment. And the black pigment is PBK 11. So I've also been doing a little bit of mixing to try and see what PBK 11 would look like mixed with some other colors. And here I'll show you that. I have that marked here in this other book. So this is also another find that I've really been liking. This is the Cadi papers. This is in a little softcover sketchbook. And so I did some mixing with a variety of colors in my palette, and this is the Daniel Smith Lunar Black, which is made out of PBK 11. So I was trying to see which color combinations might make some interesting mixes with blacks. I think of these, this one, which I believe is the I think that's the Aussie Red Gold, makes a really nice mix. You kind of have to have something really vibrant underneath because otherwise it's going to be competing with the black pigment. And you actually need more black pigment when you're mixing that way than you think. So, so there's that, and I'll just do a quick flip through of other things that I've done in this particular sketchbook. Haven't done a whole lot. It's just kind of some doodling. Here's some another flower, and this is where I did the paint with me that I did on the channel. I will put a link to that as well. So I haven't gotten too far into this. I started doing some color mixing in here, and one thing with the Cadi papers sketchbook, this is 100% cotton paper, but I found that the colors kind of sink into the paper just a little too much, and maybe it's just because there's a little too much texture to really get some good representations of mixes on this paper. So although I like it, I'm not sure I would call this paper a favorite as of yet. But I did want to show you those other color mixes that I'm trying to do with PBK 11, in that case Lunar Black from Daniel Smith. So I might do a separate video on that, of mixing a bunch of colors with that. I'll have to pick out some really vibrant colors to do that with. And so the next color that has been one of my favorites is the Daniel Smith Cobalt Teal. I had the Core brand Cobalt Teal in my everyday carry palette for a little while. And then I started using this Daniel Smith Cobalt Teal, and both of them are new additions, by the way, fairly new additions. So I had not been using it for a long time. But once I started using the Daniel Smith Cobalt Teal, I really preferred the way it granulated and it handled with other colors. So I have switched out that Core brand Cobalt Teal for this Daniel Smith version. And this mix with Cobalt Teal is one of my favorites. So it is with Daniel Smith Naphthalimide Maroon, I think that's called, but I've just abbreviated there. It makes this beautiful sort of mottled mix here. If they're fairly diluted, you're going to get a really nice light gray, but when they're a little bit stronger and in sort of equal proportions, the two colors, you're going to get this really cool effect here. And the reason why you get that effect is because the Cobalt Teal is a really heavy pigment, so it falls to the bottom, but you're still seeing it through the layer of this maroon that's over the top, so you get sort of an interesting bluish gray. And I did a little bit of a bigger swatch here that's a little bit lighter and a little more heavy on the teal as opposed to the maroon, so you can actually get a lot of variation with this mix, which is part of why I like it. And I'll show you, I did some little experimental mixes on another piece of paper, which I'll show you here in a minute. But this one in particular, I thought also showed a different way that you can go with this. And this is a very textured paper. This is the Shizen watercolor paper that I purchased from Blick. But I think you can buy it from other sources as well. I will put a link to it below, depending on where I find it from. And it's 100% cotton, and it's extremely textured. And I'll show you a painting that I did on this later. I've been mostly using it for abstracts, so the one that I'm going to show you is an abstract, but I just wanted to show you this other variation of that mix, which is really pretty. So my next favorite color for this recent time period is Rembrandt's Cobalt Violet. So I had been looking for a specific shade of cobalt violet for quite a while, and this is the one that I settled on. So I was looking for something that skewed a little bit more pink than more purple, which a lot of them did, and I thought that this was just the perfect shade. And this Rembrandt brand is a really nice paint. It granulates really well. It's really pretty on the paper. It's easy to use. Cobalt colors sometimes are hard to re-wet. This one I haven't really had all that much trouble with. As long as I wet it beforehand, or add a lot of water when I'm trying to get it up off the palette, it's been fine. But sometimes you will have that trouble. You won't have that same trouble with Cobalt Teal, at least not with Daniel Smith. So another one of my favorite mixes is this Rembrandt Cobalt Violet with Daniel Smith Rare Green Earth. So again, excuse me. So this is two granulating colors together, and you can see how they kind of blend together, but not entirely, because you've got that granulation that's separating. And this color in particular, I thought would be really nice for painting mountainsides and that sort of thing that are off in the distance that may look a little purpley. I thought these two colors would work really well for that. And then down here, as you can see, granulating is the characteristic of the month for my favorites. So Lunar Earth has been a favorite for a long time and continues to remain a favorite. I love it, love it, love it. I tend to use it interchangeably with burnt sienna or in place of a burnt sienna to get a little bit more granulation. And then this Genuine color from Daniel Smith, Burnt Tiger's Eye Genuine, is also just a beautiful brown. And when you add it to other colors, it gives you a really nice granulation. I'll show you again once I'm done here some of the mixes I've done. And then this one is Daniel Smith Autumn Mystery. It's one of their duochrome colors, so it does have a little bit of shine to it. I'm going to show you these closer to the camera and move that back and forth so you can see it. And then this one I just sort of added. I didn't put it on this piece of paper, but I had been playing with it for another abstract piece I was doing. And this is Blue Appetite Genuine by Daniel Smith. And this is just a lovely, lovely blue. I'm really, really in love with that color. And I had mixed it with, I think this is quinacridone Burnt Orange. And I really like mixing opposites on the color wheel, which these two are sort of opposites. I think they're roughly, let me see, let me get my color wheel out. So let's see. So here's orange and here's blue. So yeah, so I think we're probably just about opposite. I mean, we might be off by just a little bit, depending on the shade here. But I was really, really liking that color combination. You can see that the orange is kind of bleeding up into here. I didn't really mix them too much. I just kind of put them next to each other and let them bleed together. It's just really pretty in my opinion. Okay, so I'm going to put that off to the side, and then I'm going to put this up to the camera with the colors, and then I'm going to show you this other thing that I have here off to the side. So you can really see that beautiful granulation in that Rembrandt Dusk Pink, and the same with these others. And then this Autumn Mystery Duochrome. And I have the abstract that I'm going to show you that's on the rough paper has this in it as well, and you might actually be able to see it more in that one because I have it layered over other colors, and sometimes that shows up a little better. And then two other things that are not necessarily watercolor paint, but are that I use in watercolor is this Sailor Extra Fine 21 karat nib Profit pen. So this I got off of Amazon for a steal. It was under $100. It doesn't always sell for that price. You are, and I think the Profit is a made for the Japan market pen. So the ones that I'm getting from Amazon are direct from Japan. And I had been really hesitant for a long period of time to get a extra fine in Sailor because I know the Japanese fountain pens tend to run very, very small compared to Western extra fines. But I've actually been really, really loving it for watercolor because use it with watercolor when combined with a waterproof ink like this Urban Gray, De Atramentis Document Urban Gray, which is really lovely. And here I'll show you kind of close up. Because when I have the finer lines, so all these lines I can get from just this one nib. The finer lines, you can see some of the warm tone, a little bit of the brown in this gray, and then it looks almost black when you have the more solid lines. And this was just sort of some hatching here. So that has been working really well. And if I do really fine lines, sketchy lines, just to sort of outline areas of my painting, it will almost disappear underneath watercolor because it is so faint and light and small. So I've really been liking that. And here I'll just show you the nib on that real quick. As you can see, it's very fine, and when you're drawing, if you go just with a really light touch, you're going to get these light lines, and then if you press further, the harder you press, you're going to get harder lines. I do wonder if I will get more paper stuck into the nib on this one, because I do feel like I have to be a little bit careful with it because it is so fine. But so far, no issues, and it's been working great. So before I move on to brushes and other things, I wanted to show you some of these color mixes that I was just kind of playing around with. This is that cobalt teal and naphthalamide maroon, and when it's really diluted out, you can see it's sort of this really beautiful light bluish gray. And I also kind of like it here where it's more teal than maroon, and you can kind of see where it goes when it's closer to maroon. It's just, I think it's beautiful. This is one that I didn't end up including either color, Chromium Green Oxide from Daniel Smith and English Red Earth from Daniel Smith. They're newer colors for me, and I was just kind of seeing how they would work together. They do make a really nice brown and sort of a lightish green when they're mixed together, but it wasn't necessarily something that I considered a favorite. This is Burnt Tiger's Eye Genuine and Moon Glow together, which I thought also led to some really nice mixes, but they weren't like a wow factor for me. And here is some mixes with the Rare Green Earth and the Cobalt Violet, like I was showing you my favorite mix. One of my favorite mixes, which is really beautiful. Here's the Cobalt Teal and the Cobalt Violet, which you can get some really interesting ranges of pink and purples and blues with that. And then this is another one that didn't make the cut. This is Prussian Green and Rhodonite Genuine. But I do really like the grays that I can get with this. And then this, I didn't include this mix because you can mix it with these colors that I have pointed out, this Burnt Tiger's Eye Genuine and Cobalt Teal. This I would actually include in one of my favorite mixes as well. You can see here, I just really love that little bit of teal popping up through the tiger's eye. Okay, so I'm going to actually leave this piece of paper here because I'm going to show you some of my favorite brushes, and I'm actually going to test them out here with some color. But for that, I have to show you my palette as well. So this is what I consider to be my favorite palette at the moment. This Perfect Red palette, which I originally, actually let me zoom out here a little bit so you can see that more. So this I originally purchased direct from China, but I've actually found it on Amazon. So, and it's the same price, if not cheaper. I think it's like $13, but it's been great because it has all this mixing area, and this one you can actually take out, which I haven't really done. I'm usually doing all my mixing in there. And then This is the color guide that I did for myself. I actually did different parts of the palette at different times, so I kind of pieced it together. I may end up doing a more permanent one, but some of these colors are transient in that I might end up switching them out at some point. But I really like the fact that you can have all of these pans here, and then you can have all of these wells also filled with different colors. These are obviously going to be a little bit easier to switch out, which was kind of nice when I ended up switching out my cobalt teal for Daniel Smith. But it's been working really well. The mixing area works really well. It's super easy to use, and it's somewhat portable, but I'm not really going anywhere right now, so I don't really need that. So I'm going to leave this open. I'm probably not going to do any mixing. I'll probably just show you different colors when using these brushes. So the brushes for this time period that are my favorite, I'm actually going to go from left to right. So this is the Jackson's brand Icon brush in a 10/0 quill. You'll notice that all of these brushes are quill brushes. I've just been loving, loving, loving the quill brushes. I don't know if it's just I like using them because of, you know, the way they look, but I think that there really is something a little bit different to how they handle when they're wrapped in the quill as opposed to just in a ferrule. So a ferrule, you would have metal here, and that's all you would have. A quill traditionally used to be an actual feather quill. I don't know from what bird, but it would be a feather quill, and then it would be wrapped in wire. So with these, I think they're all synthetic, like plastic quills, but they work the same as far as I can tell. So this first one, the Icon, is a combined synthetic and animal hair brush, and this one is a little bit stiffer than the other ones I have here, and I've just found that it handles so well. I'm going to open my water here off to the side. Get it really nice and wet. So I'm going to go into, this is French Ultramarine by Daniel Smith. So it's just been really nice to do sort of general washes, but then you can also get some really nice precise lines, some little dashes in there. It's just been really nice. The size of it is really nice. I would say this is probably the equivalent of about an 8, but again, there's no standard sizing with brushes, so it's going to kind of be all over the place. But when I want a brush that's a little more stiff and I get a little bit more control out of it, I'm going to pick up this one. And these are all regular brushes. They're not travel brushes. And I haven't been using my travel brushes as much because I'm at home. So this next one is a Jackson's brand again, in the Raven style, and this is the 10-1 as well. So you'll see that even though these are both 10-1 size, or I'm sorry, 10-0 size, which essentially means like 10 zeros, they are a little bit different. I'll wet this one here so you can see. But they have a little bit of a different shape and size, even though they're the same number. And this one is a little bit softer than this one, so I'm going to be going progressively softer as I go up with the brushes. So let's see. I'm not going to go with the Cobalt Violet because that does tend to have some issues re-wetting. I'm going into the Nickel Azo Yellow. So this just gives really nice washes. I mean, obviously it's not a very big brush, but if you want just really nice washes, it holds a lot of water. You can also get some pretty good detail. Not as much as with the other one because this one's a little bit more malleable, but it's very, very nice. And then the next one is a little bit softer again. This is the Cassino by Da Vinci, and this is in a size 0, which looks about the same size as the Raven brush, which is all synthetic, by the way. The Raven brush is all synthetic. And I'll put a link down below to all of these brushes. But this Da Vinci is also really nice. It's a little bit firm for a quill brush, but it works really nicely. Actually, I think this is the one that's slightly more firm than that one before it. I think I had them out of order because this one does have a little bit more control. Okay. And this one is also synthetic. So the last two have been synthetic if you're concerned about animal hair. And then this very last one is Da Vinci. It's in a 3-0, or 3/0, which is much, much smaller than these. But this is super soft, and it's just really a delight to paint with. I'm trying to think what color. Let's go into Schminke Quin Gold. So, oops, I need some more water in that brush. So you're going to be able to get really nice washes. It's not as easy to control as the other two, but let me go into a different color here. But it really does give you the ability to do some really nice brush strokes, and because it holds so much water even for such a little brush, you can actually get a lot of pigment out of it. Okay, so those are my current 4 favorite brushes. I'm going to close up my favorite palette because I think we're done with that phase there. And then the next 2 that I'm going to show you are things that I have painted with different, well, not different, but, well, they are different from each other, but they're also new substrates that I've been working on, different surfaces. So this one is that rough paper that I was showing you earlier. So you can see a little bit of the sheen to that autumn mystery that's in through here, I hope. So this was just a lot of different layering of different colors, and this was just sort of, abstract doodling to a certain extent. I used some water-soluble pencils in here, but I didn't use a lot. It's mostly watercolor paint. Okay, so there's that. And I'm still learning how to use this rough paper. And I really did not like, other than in a few places, the look of the pigment not going down. So I really did kind of lay in heavy with water and pigment so that it would sink down into all these little crevices. But I think that I might play with it a little bit more to see what kind of effects I can get with this paper. But this was a lot of fun. And like I said, this is more of a new discovery, and which I've unboxed on the channel, which I'll put a link down below. But I'm also just trying to learn how to use that paper. And then this one I did, this is a landscape that I did from a reference photo of Colorado. And this is Aqua Board, which I can't remember which brand this is, but it's Aqua Board, so it has a treatment on the top of the board so that it would be water, you can use it with watercolor. So this was my first experience with the water board, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it yet. And I think I need to kind of practice some more on this type of paper because especially with the skies, I was having a little bit of trouble. Or with the sky, there's only one. Because normally how I would do skies is I would wet the whole area where the sky is supposed to be, and then I kind of plop in color. So I did that here, but the water was absorbing so fast into the panel that it wouldn't stay wet long enough. So that's why I've got some of these hard edges here. I mean, after a certain point, I just kind of went with it because I didn't want to mess with it too much because I wanted to be kind of a light sky. This was supposed to be more of a dramatic sunset sky, which didn't quite come off that way, but I'm still okay with it. But the challenge was definitely keeping the surface wet, and even when it was super wet, the color acted a lot differently than it acted on regular paper. So just because the absorption rate is clearly different. And I think that the paint sits differently on this surface as well. It tends to look a little bit more matte, I would say. I mean, watercolor always looks matte, but for some reason I feel like it looks different than you would on a paper like this, or even paper like this, where you're just gonna have a different look to it. And maybe that's just the difference between paper and a board. like this. And of course, you know, you could always put watercolor paper on a board. You could glue it on a board and paint like that, but I figured this is specifically for watercolor. I wanted to kind of try it out. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I mean, I'm okay with the painting that resulted, but it just is a different surface for me. So I'll show you kind of close up. You can even see it kind of has a little bit of a nubbly surface, which you can see more close up. I just didn't get as much flow. I think that's really the issue. I didn't get as much flow with the watercolors as I normally do on paper, because I've been working in paper and I've kind of gotten better at learning how the watercolors can flow into the water onto the paper. So, so that's that, but I think that's it. So like I said, these two surfaces were more new discoveries for me, and I'm going to put those off to the side. I'm going to work with them more and see if they become favorites, but we'll see. Oh, and I did want to mention, so this paper that these samples are all on are it's from the packet of bee paper from Amazon, and I've really been loving this paper. So this actually is a favorite. It's 100% cotton. It's really inexpensive for a packet of, I think, 50 sheets, and it's really inexpensive for what you get. And although the paper, I don't remember what the weight of the paper is, but it's actually pretty sturdy, and colors show up really nicely on it. So I've been really enjoying doing just random sketches on this paper. It comes loose leaf, so it's not in a sketchbook, but I still like it. All right, well, I think that's it for today. I just wanted to show you those favorites related to watercolor. I didn't do any mixed media other than maybe the fountain pen and the ink. But I probably will do a separate video for mixed media favorites and maybe show some recent works in that one as well. But that's it for today. Feel free to subscribe so you can keep track of future videos, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.